my back? I got your back. Easy at my back? I got your back. 1, 2, 3.
This is Tony Mitchell coming at you with Championship Mindset Podcast. This is our 6th podcast, and I have a very special guest that was gracious enough to join me, taking time out of her busy schedule. I have with me today who I call the queen of track and field in Pennsylvania, and she's probably the queen as an Olympian, because Lauryn, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the only woman to have medaled in the Winter Olympics and the Summer Olympics. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I'm the only American woman to earn a medal in both the Summer and the Winter Olympics.
Okay, so she's more than just a queen of PA. I met Lauryn when she was a sprinter at Rochester Area High School. And she has been a special young lady, not just as a sprinter, just off the track and the things that she accomplished, some of the things she overcame. And she has just been focused her entire life. I'm going to have Miss Lauryn Williams introduce herself to you. And Lauryn, I want you to tell everybody when you started running track, when your first love from track was experienced.
Well, I started running track when I was around 9 years old, and I definitely did not love track and field initially. It was something to do, something to be out the house participating in, but it just wasn't really my cup of tea. I was like, why would anybody just like run and make themselves tired and there's no like kind of real result? Well, I didn't realize that was a track practice and that the races were coming, a little bit later down the road. So you first had to practice before you could race. So I gave it a try a couple years later and enjoyed it a lot more, and I had some natural ability. So the fun part was that I didn't have to work super hard to win, but the winning part got really fun, and it made me want to participate more.
So when you were 9 and 10 years old, you started running track. You ran for a track club. What track club?
Correct.
What track club did you run for?
So initially, my mom and my dad, they split up when I was 3 years old. And so until 6th grade, I was living in Detroit with my mother. Okay. So I started out at a place called Motor City Track Club in Detroit.
Okay.
And then when I was in 6th grade, I moved to Rochester with my dad. My dad had leukemia. And at the very beginning, it was a pretty rocky road. And my mom didn't think he was going to live very much longer. So she thought it'd be better if I went to live with him in case he wasn't around much longer.
Okay.
And that's what brought me to Beaver County. So then I joined the Wings of Moon track team, and summer track was happening during that. Yeah,
I remember the Wings of Moon. I remember doing some coaching in the summer and watching you run. And one of the things that always stood out for me watching you run was your emotion was effortless. You had this love for track, and it was almost like you glided when you ran. And I was the head football coach and head track coach at Wilkinsburg High School. So we were like running in the same classification and playing football in the same classification as Rochester. Do you remember your first experience at the Whippeal Championships at Southside Beaver as a freshman? Do you remember that?
I have no memory of it at all. I hear that someone else on this podcast does have a memory.
Oh, I definitely have a tremendous memory of your freshman year. My guys that I was coaching, we were a senior-dominated team, and I remember going to Southside Beaver. I had followed your progress throughout that season, and I knew you were special. And I was trying to get my guys to understand how special you were. And I had a very good sprinter named Chaz Clemens who ended up going to Lincoln University. I believe he was 11-time All-American in 100 and 200 meters. And I remember specifically saying to Chaz, I need you to watch this young lady when she runs, because when she comes out of the blocks, it's a thing of beauty. And I remember working with him, telling him repeatedly, our drive phase is going to result in a medal. Lauryn's drive phase is phenomenal. And I remember you coming out of the blocks and, man, the race was over the first 20 meters. And I remember looking at my guys in the bleachers, and they were like, whoa, Coach, you didn't tell us she was like that. and it was like you announced yourself at that point that, I am here and I plan on winning every year that I come here. Tell me what it felt like to get that first gold medal at the Whitfield level, knowing that you were on your way to states. Do you remember that feeling?
I would say it was mostly one that said, like, there's more to your story than just one performance and one opportunity. So it was the first inkling or first lesson into when you complete one, that there's levels to things. And so when you complete level one, that there's yet another thing to conquer. And I think that's what that really started to lay the groundwork for me, because so often we just kind of shoot for, let me just make it to blah, blah, blah. And you treat the thing that is kind of the lowest hanging fruit as the championship. But for me, I think it was the first time that I realized that, kind of no matter what you achieve, there's always like this next level of achievement. But also being really clear on like what your goals are and realizing too, that though there's always a next level of achievement doesn't necessarily mean that you need to keep going. But that there's no end. You got to really set the goals that are specific to you as opposed to setting goals that are tied to the next achievement, because otherwise you're always chasing something.
Well, the thing that I really always appreciated about you is your focus, your level of focus and your attention to detail. Even as a freshman, you were different than a lot of the runners that you were going against. And when we talk about championship mindset, we talk about acceptance, courage, and wisdom. We talk a little bit about passion, purpose, and pride. You kind of exemplified what that meant. You had an extreme high level of passion, and you already knew what your purpose was. We talk about that all the time in our workshops. I want you to tell me a little bit about when you realized that you were more passionate about track and field than anything else that you were doing.
I think the thing that kind of cut the passion on for me was the doors that it started opening for me. So for track and field, I didn't have a way that I was working on getting an academic scholarship to go to college. That was the main focus for me. I didn't know that there were athletic scholarships initially. So I had to figure out how to get to college because that was a big goal, but I knew my family didn't have money to pay for college. And when I realized that track and field could give me the opportunity to get an athletic scholarship, and that, there was a lot more opportunities available to me. Like, everybody across the country is smart. There's, tens of thousands of people that are trying to get to school that are smart. There are not as many that are as athletically gifted.
Exactly.
And I realized that was a real door that, was going to open. They said the doors were open for some schools because of my academics, but a lot more doors were open because of my athletics. And that's where real passion started to grow for me, because it was really important for me to get the education. And I realized that track was an avenue for me to be able to do that.
So when I look at that, there's an opportunity that you seized that opportunity. A lot of people you grew up with, a lot of people that grew up in Wilkinsburg where I was coaching, they had the same opportunities athletically, and for whatever reason, they did not seize those opportunities. What made your journey so different? Why was it easier, or not easier, but why were you able to seize that opportunity when it presented itself?
I mean, I think the thing for me was, like I said, there wasn't another option. It was go for this because this is the best option available to you, and go passionately toward this because it's the best option available for you. I always had big goals for myself. So I always look back, and I think it was actually, I don't remember what speech I gave recently, but it was kind of a moment where it clicked for me that that I thought I was something special. I didn't need someone else to believe that I was something special, because I've always believed that I was something special. It wasn't all these things that like, oh, I made it to the Olympics and now I realize I have great ability. I was the class president all 4 years of high school.
Wow.
In an all white school where, there was one other black girl, maybe 3 or 4 other black boys. And at a time where you'd think that, lack of diversity could be an issue, I was accepted there. And, I had to have some sort of charisma to have my classmates trust me and love me enough to vote me not once, but all 4 times to lead our class. I was a student council president. I, had to set up the Christmas dances and all those different kinds of things. So, they sound small, but
no, that's
this was well
huge.
before I was an Olympian.
That's huge, because you're talking about, again, you were in a predominantly white school district. You were one of a few members of the African American culture, and you were accepted wholeheartedly. I think that speaks to your leadership ability. I think it speaks to the charisma, and it speaks to the respect level you got. I want to hold that thought. We do everything in segments at Championship Mindset Podcast, and we're going to get right back on that in 1 second. Hey, this is Tony Mitchell coming back at you. Segment number 2 with Miss Lauryn Williams of Rochester. Lauryn is a 3-time Olympian, correct, Lauryn?
I am a 4-time Olympian.
You are. Excuse me. She is a 4-time Olympian. Man, you know what? It's so funny when you say that, because some people are lucky enough to make it once. You made it 4 times to the Olympic Games. That is phenomenal. And I want to tell you that I've watched everything that you've done from the time you left Rochester, because I never stopped coaching, and I always used you as an example of what can happen if you have the right mindset. We ended our last segment kind of talking about you being the class president, the lack of diversity at Rochester, and you being a 4-time student council class president. At what point, Lauryn, did you realize in your track career at Rochester that Division I schools were starting to pay a lot of interest in you?
It was around the end of my junior year, so letters started to come in a little bit late for me. I don't think that, I had good times, but I didn't have great times. He said I was in a smaller district, so I started to really kind of break on the scene toward the end of my sophomore year, and I ran, like I said, summer track, started to put extra eyeballs on me, and junior year, these letters started to flow in from various schools, and, initially it was like schools that were local and smaller schools, and then it was schools from all over the country, and I was like, wow, this is a really cool opportunity. Like, look at LSU and Texas and Miami and Rice, now the whole world had opened up. It was an opportunity for me to choose kind of like, what state might I want to participate in sports in? Because, out of state was not an option if we were going to have to pay for school on my own.
So now it was after your junior year, you had a lot of interest. The light bulb and the light switch clicked. You knew you were big time. It was just a matter at that point of finding the right fit. Now, I want to ask you, at what point in your high school career, whether it was junior, whether it was sophomore, when we use the concept of people, places, and things a lot in Championship Mindset, you have to select the right people to surround yourself with. They take you places, and when you get there, you do certain things. At what point did you understand that people, places, and things were going to get you to the next level, selecting the right people? At what point did you understand that concept?
Yeah, I think I realized that early on, because, I knew that my coach, Mr. Price, was like always encouraging me. He was always trying to keep my head on straight. And, he wasn't well versed in track and field, once I got to a university and realized like the caliber of training. But he was one of those people, like you said, that dedicated his time to making sure that, one, I had the opportunity to be able to participate in sport, but two, making sure that, like I said, mentally I stayed in the right frame of mind so that I could really seize this opportunity. Because, as a high school kid, you sometimes don't know what's right in front of you. And he's like, this is a really great opportunity. I don't want you to blow it. So, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go to that. Like, and he, would just, even though I was kind of bratty, he was like, okay, well, let's talk about why you don't want to do this. And let's talk about why we are going to do this, as opposed to, forcing it down my throat. He knew he kind of had to go back and forth with me a little bit and let me come to the same conclusion on my own. And I realize now what his investment of time was.
He was a tremendous mentor for you at a young age. And I really appreciate that, because being an African-American man myself and coaching for over 30 years in inner cities, you don't really find that frequently, somebody who's willing to mentor you, get on board with you, and stay on board with you for as long as he stayed on board with you. I think that's a very special thing, and I know you appreciate everything he did for you. I want you, in your words, to tell me what it means now that you're all done running and you're an entrepreneur. When you look back on things, how important was it that Coach Price was a mentor for you?
I think it's literally priceless. The value of someone investing their time and their knowledge into you is something that goes so far beyond what you could think of as it pertains to like really valuing something. And those investments that seem like nothing in that moment, or could even become nothing. I could have, made some bad choices and really ruined my life, but you still would have made that same investment in me, and you don't know what you're going to get when you're making that investment. So choosing to make the investment in someone, not knowing what's going to be the result of it, but understanding that the result could be something amazing, I think is something that we all need to do more of, because you're right, I would not be the same individual had he not poured into me the way he did from an early age. And then, the baton got passed over to my coach at the University of Miami. And she was very similar in the way that she had to do something unique. She couldn't just do a one-size-fits-all plan for me, for the rest of the team. It was like, okay, this girl can't run as far, but we know that she's fast. So I'm going to have to train her differently to get her speed top end. Those investments of time and knowledge and understanding me as a person are the things that took me to the next level. And you can't put a price on those.
That's exactly right. And that's what championship mindset is all about. It's about making an investment in people, in programs. And I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to come and join us. I want you to tell me briefly, when you decided that you were going to further your career at the University of Miami, what were the biggest obstacles once you got on campus at the University of Miami?
I would say my biggest obstacle was kind of feeling like a fish out of water. It was a whole new set of friends, a whole new set of people. I was really far away from home, and I chose that. I wanted that, but immediately as soon as I did it, I was kind of like, no training wheels, but you got to go for it.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a little apprehensive initially. Finding a new crew, finding a new crowd. Like I said, coming from a very a school that was not very diverse, but I fit in just fine, and then seeing diversity all around me was a bit of an adjustment. And obviously diversity is great. But I just, was kind of like, hey, there's Spanish people and there's Haitian people and there's Bahamian people. And, in my mind, it's kind of like black and white. And my dad was Trinidadian, so it wasn't that I didn't know there weren't other cultures, but you literally saw all kinds of people at the University of Miami.
It was a melting pot.
It was a melting pot. But then, like I said, you still wanted to find, who's your crew and where do you fit in? So there was, the athlete crew, there was the smarty pants crew, and there was still some division, more white people hung out with white people,
right,
or,
right.
They hung out with black people. And I didn't really feel that in Beaver County because, like I said, I hung out with white people because that's who was around, but there was no separation. You could see there was kind of groups of black people and there were groups of white people. And I'm like, I'd like to be in both of these groups. How can we mesh these groups together?
So you spent some time trying to think how you could mesh some things together. at the University of Miami.
Right, yeah.
I want you to hold that thought for me.
Trying to figure out where I belong.
I want you to hold that thought for me, Lauryn, because we're going to finish this second segment with that thought, take a short break, and then we're going to get back with your experience at Miami going into your first Olympics, knowing you were going to your first Olympics. We're going to come right back at you in 1 minute. Okay, this is Tony Mitchell coming back at you. Segment number 3 with Miss Lauryn Williams. Lauryn, you are in Dallas, Texas is your home right now, correct?
Yeah.
And tell us right now, where are you? You are currently in Amsterdam. How did that happen?
Well, I love to travel, and I'm really lucky to have a job where I can operate independent of my location. So some friends, actually my bobsled driver, Alon Myers Taylor, that I won the silver medal with, is taking a tour around Europe this summer. So she's doing London, Paris, Amsterdam, and Barcelona. And I was free for the 4th of July holiday, so I decided to meet them for the Amsterdam leg of things. So I worked all day yesterday, and then I got to hang out a little bit in the evening, and then doing a little bit today as well. And then, well, it's evening here now, but I hung out earlier in the day today, and now I'm working in the evening because it's daytime at home. So
that is unbelievable. Cool. That is unbelievable. I remember, talking to my athletes in Wilkinsburg about the fishbowl mindset. That's a big part of championship mindset, getting people to be willing to jump out of the fishbowl. Everybody has a fishbowl in your community where you live, and it's not a social economic thing, it's a mental thing. And you had the opportunity to jump out of that fishbowl and go to the University of Miami. You had just completed your first year of track and field. You had went to nationals. Tell me at what point you realized after that first year that you were going to be an Olympian and it was going to be your goal and the work you needed to put in.
So for me, it was actually my junior year of college that I realized. So I did make it to nationals as a freshman. I made it to nationals as a sophomore. But it was my junior year where I was really working toward winning the national championships in college, because I'd come up short as a freshman and as a sophomore. So I got a taste of what it was like to be at the national championships, but I didn't understand what it meant to win it. And in my sophomore year, there was a time where I felt like I had done well enough that I could have won it earlier in the season, but I just didn't put the right race together at the right time. And so I was like, okay, no more of this. My next year, I'm going to win it. I'm not going to get on the line and feel like I was just as good as everybody else, but didn't perform up to par.
Absolutely.
So I really started to kind of focus a little bit more and start to get a better understanding of, like you said, what it was going to take for me to win the national championship. And really, by truly working toward that is what kind of opened the door for me to be able to go to the Olympics. That wasn't necessarily the goal. It was just to win the nationals first. And then that's what I was saying earlier, is that you always realize you achieve one accomplishment, and then there's another one that's right there waiting for you to start working on.
So it's like a chain link fence. You accomplish one thing and you just keep climbing that fence. And
exactly, yeah.
I believe that was probably always your destiny. And once you started that thing in motion at Rochester, you just never stopped climbing. You were never satisfied. And that was the thing when I followed you that really was amazing to me, because I kind of knew where you came from, did a lot of research on, your personal life and how you got started. And it was just amazing to me that I was, witnessing history. And coming from Beaver County, running in the WPIL, and doing all the things that you did, it was just amazing that you just never let anything get in the way. There were no obstacles that were big enough to stop you from going after your goal, So kudos to you for just never letting anybody set your ceiling. You were the one that set your ceiling. And when I think about that, after your junior year of running track at Miami, and you knew that you wanted to be a national champion going into that junior year, what did it finally feel like when you became a national champion at the University of Miami?
It was amazing. It was a really cool opportunity. Like, it was one of those things where, like I said, you know that hard work pays off. People tell you that all the time. You've had small instances of that in your life, but this was a really big instance of, me having made a lot of changes, me really having focused in, and the competition was very stiff. Muna Lee, I remember being there and having to think about, it was her senior year, competing against her. She usually had the upper hand on me. She had all throughout my childhood. And, getting over the mental block that she's always going to finish in front of me is a really big deal. Whenever you've been beaten by something in particular and you keep going up against that thing, it starts to make you believe you can't get in front of that thing is better.
Right.
So, yeah, that's a whole new set of mindset, is being able to say, I'm worthy. I am capable. I have trained just as hard as she has. And, this is my time to shine. I'm not showing up here to get second place.
That's very important that you said that. I'm glad you phrased it just that way, because that's what we do. We work with teams, we work with organizations, we work with individuals, and that is the message that we send. We try to send that message. You put your work in. You're dedicated in the off season. If nobody's working as hard as you, and even if they are working as hard as you, if you want it, it's your job to go and take it. Nobody's going to hand you the baton at that point. You have to be willing to go and take it. And that's exactly what you did. And the thing that I want to share with everybody is, to be an Olympian is one thing, but to be a 4-time Olympian is unbelievable. But more important than that, to go into a different venue such as bobsledding, where you've never done anything like that, and to earn a silver medal as a bobsledder. Tell me exactly mentally where you were when you decided that you were going to leave track and field and try this. What types of things were going through your mind at this challenge?
Well, yeah, at this time in my career, I started to slow down. And I think now, looking back on it, one of the main reasons I started to slow down was my body had changed. My weight was fluctuating quite a bit. And I don't think that it was necessarily diet or not trying hard enough. There's a lot of discipline that's being required of you as an athlete. But I think that, kind of the same way you go through puberty in your middle school years, your body is changing at other parts of your life. And we don't really talk about that. And it was just that my body was, it was doing something different. And so this was my best body at this time, but it wasn't a track and field body anymore. And so it was really frustrating for me, because I kept trying to force kind of a square peg into a round hole.
Yes.
And I finally kind of came to the realization that, okay, it's time for me to move on from this thing. So what's next for me? And I had a finance degree, so I was, looking at different options in the financial industry, and had already started studying for a certified financial planning exam. When I ran into a girl at the airport, I was still competing, and I asked her about her experience with bobsled. I'd read an article about her having tried it, and just happened to see her in the airport, talk to her about it. She's like, "You should try it." And I said, "I'm kind of a when opportunity knocks, run through the door sort of girl." So I was like, "Oh, this sounds cool. I'll give it a try." I didn't have any expectations by showing up there, but it was exactly what I needed in that moment. It was like I was in great shape. I was still very athletic, and they needed a more voluptuous athlete. They wanted you to be fast and big. And I was like, this is perfect. I can gain weight and still run as fast as possible.
But you're running on ice, so that was unbelievable when you think about the drive phase as a 100-meter sprinter or a 200-meter sprinter is almost similar to the drive phase pushing that bobsled. The power and the drive that you have to have. You were ideal. I look at everything that you accomplished, and there's no question that the man upstairs was looking out for you, Lauryn. He kind of knew. He kind of knew. He said, "Man,
completely agree.
This young lady is built to be a bobsledder. She can push this sled and make history." So I kind of connect, our program Championship Mindset with the spiritual diet that people need. Tell me in your words when you realized that your spiritual diet was more important than almost anything else in achieving sustainable peace in your life.
Yeah, I mean, so really early on, actually, my dad was very, very much into church, and as kids, we were not very much into church, so he was kind of shoving it down our throats, and I was like, I don't know this church. And he went to some very small churches. He tried to like start some churches on his own, and start churches with other people. So we never went to like a really big church and had a regular kind of Sunday experience.
Okay.
And I think that was kind of the thing that made it a little bit tough for me initially. And at one point, he started going to churches that were about an hour and a half away. And we'd be there all day long. Wow. And I was just like, oh, my goodness, I want my Sundays back. And so, like you said, God always has a plan. So in my mind, I got pretty clever as a teenager. And I was like, well, if I find my own church, then he can't yell at me because I'm still doing what he wants. He wants me to go to church.
Yes.
But I don't have to go an hour and a half away.
Yes.
And they opened a church literally on the corner from our house.
Wow.
And I started going to that church. And it had a really good youth program. And so, I initially started going to spite my dad, but, it did help me get the independence and get my own mindset, my own relationship with God. And, it kind of worked out from there.
And I tell you what, it has been a special journey for you because of that mindset. I don't believe that anybody can achieve their optimal potential without that spiritual guidance. You can be successful, but to reach the levels that you reached, that's divine intervention. And I am a big proponent of what championship mindset can do to introduce people to divine intervention, because most of the time we fight it. We fight it and we fight it until we realize that, the Lord is in pursuit of us and he's going to catch us one way or another. Now, what we do once he catches us is up to us. That's basically called free will. You had free will. You could have went another direction, but you chose to follow your spiritual guidance. And what I wanted you to do is to kind of hold that thought right now, because we're going to close out this segment. We're going to come back with our final segment with Miss Lauryn Williams, and we're going to talk about what she's doing now, this exciting in her financial business, her entrepreneurship. So hold that thought, Lauryn, and we'll get right back with you. We want to pick this up here, and we want to just go right into, I'm going to let you tell us in your words, what you do and how you do it, because I want to be able to give you some plugs. There's some guys here that are some pretty good athletes, and for whatever reason, how Western Pennsylvania, it produces a lot of NFL football players. And
we sure do.
And it's like, these guys are always looking for somebody to help them on the financial end of things. And I want you to just kind of just take your time and go through what you do, because I want to be able to talk with some of these young men, because there's a gentleman I just did a podcast with. He plays for the Eagles. It's his second year with the Eagles, and I know that Trey is looking for somebody, and I know there's a couple other guys that are looking for somebody to give them good, sound financial advice, because it's just not a lot of people that are willing to do that. They want your money for their own selfish purposes. So I want you to kind of just tell everybody what you do, and even if you share some of your experience, what happened with you with whether it be financial planners or the combination of agents and financial planners, and just kind of walk everybody through the process of what you do and how you do it. Okay, this is Tony.
Oh, we're recording.
Yeah, we're right now.
Okay, all right. I thought, I was like, I think we're still on the thing, but then you paused, and I was like, oh, he's waiting for me to answer. Okay.
No problem. Okay. No problem.
All right, here we go.
All right. This is Tony Mitchell coming back at you with another segment with Miss Lauryn Williams. She is so gracious to spend all this time with us on this podcast. Lauryn has a degree in finance, and Lauryn has used that degree to start her own business. She is an entrepreneur. She works with athletes, individuals, and she does some financial planning. I want Lauryn, in her own words, to tell you how she got started and what she's doing with her business and what the name of her business is.
Yeah, so my business is called Worth Winning, and it's kind of a play on words because I think, like you said, we spend a lot of time, thinking that our self-worth and our net worth are related. As athletes, as we get ready to transition from sport to life after sport, we're trying to understand who we are outside of being an athlete. So, my business is kind of focused on using money as a tool to help you live the life you want, because those are the things that are like really worth winning. It's not so much the championships or the gold medals or, that opportunity to stand on top of the podium. Once you get those things as an athlete, you always look around and you say, well, what's next? And you have to have something outside of life that is going to be worth, or outside of sport that's going to be worth winning.
Absolutely.
So what I do in my business is I help young professionals. So I kind of tend to focus on people in their 20s and 30s, and then also professional athletes. So, some of my clients are doctors and lawyers. Some of them are, work at just regular companies. Whoever in their 20s and 30s feels like they want to get their finances organized. But then also, like you said, I have a very special passion around being able to serve professional athletes because I was one. And for me, my kind of financial story in a nutshell was, as a finance major, I realized very quickly as a junior in college at, 20 years old, I didn't know enough just yet to handle my own finances. But I also knew that there was very much value in having an expert and hiring someone to help me. So I went out immediately and found someone. Now, the problem was that I didn't know that there were all kinds of different financial professionals in the world. Mm-hmm. And I think this is something that a lot of people, and in particular athletes, run into, is that, you go and someone approaches you and says, like, hey, let me help you. And you're like, hey, I need help. This person showed up. They must have been sent. And you just go with that.
Right.
As opposed to learning a little bit more about, what kind of different financial professionals exist. First understanding what kind of financial help you need, and then going and asking 2 or 3 different people. It's always great when someone recommends a family friend. That's kind of like what we call a warm lead.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do due diligence above and beyond that, because, that's still one person and they're operating in a silo. So you want to get information from at least 3 different people whenever you're interviewing anybody about anything, so that you get different points of view before you make a decision, and you learn a little bit more than you would if you only talk to one person.
Absolutely.
I didn't do that initially. So the gentleman I was working with is what we call like a commission advisor. And so he gets commissions for selling investment products. Now, in and of itself, investing, there's nothing wrong with that. But, what I've come to learn over the years is that that's not the best way to go about helping someone organize their finances.
Okay.
The best way to go about organizing your finances is to look at your full financial picture. So that's your budget, that's your tax situation, that is, what kind of knowledge do you have? What kind of money emotions do you have? How do you feel about spending? What other financial responsibilities do you have? As athletes, you hear the story of like the one that purchased a home for their mother, or, look after some member of their family. You got to understand the dynamics related to all these different things. Right. In addition to, the insurance piece of it, the estate planning piece of it, the investment piece. Those are the parts you hear about a lot more. But if you don't understand who the person is and what the person is trying to accomplish and what their values are and what they know already, you can't just start investing on their behalf without understanding those things. Otherwise, you're not doing your due diligence.
Absolutely.
You need to start with a foundation, build a strong foundation, and strong foundations are always built by understanding your budget, your cash flow, and your values. And then once you've got that part nailed down, you move forward with the investment pieces and the other pieces of it. So in my company, I am, like I said, a registered investment advisory company. I do have the ability to invest on behalf of my clients. But I am very, very focused on their full financial picture. And we will not begin investing until we've made sure we covered all our bases. Do we have emergency funds in place? Do we clearly understand what our goals are and what it's going to cost for us to achieve those goals? Because you just start throwing money in the market, that's not a thing. Or, I want to open this business, I want to open that business. Well, do we have these 4 or 5 pieces in place before we start looking at other opportunities?
Absolutely.
And other people, I feel like, have been very much yes men or yes women when working with athletes and young professionals. It's like, okay, yeah, sure. Throw your money over here. And there wasn't a lot of information or guidance around it. And one of my stories too is that I bought a house that I shouldn't have purchased. And I did. I called my financial advisor before I bought it. And his response to me was, yeah, I've been waiting for you to say you wanted a bigger house. Uh-huh. And so as a young professional, I hired this gentleman. He's supposed to be an expert. he didn't offer any real explanation at the time, but of course I was very excited about the house.
Right.
So he's like, yeah, I've been waiting for you to buy one. I'm like, he must know something that I don't know. Maybe this is going to be a great tax write-off. Maybe this is, really a big part of my picture. And, people talk about a house as an asset.
Right.
When you don't have a lot of financial literacy, you're trusting the person that they must know something that you don't know. And so this must be a good idea because he said it. And that was kind of all the research I did.
Right.
What he should have done, though, was take the time to explain to me, this mortgage is for 30 years. What job is going to allow you to be able to pay this bill for 30 years? Because track is not going to go on for 30 years.
Right.
He should have talked to me about, the expense of furnishing a house as big as the house I bought. He should have talked to me about, property taxes and insurance on a house like that.
Exactly.
And those are the kind of discussions that a real person who cares about you, like he's not going to get a commission for giving me that advice, but that's the right advice to give.
Exactly.
And that's the other reason that my business is different, is because I don't earn any commissions. I don't operate in that way at all. So my clients pay me a flat retainer. So I call it an annual retainer. And some of them pay it monthly. Some of them pay it quarterly. But you know what the fee is, and it includes everything. So there's no hidden fees. There's no transaction costs. There's no side business. You know what you're paying me, and you call me for any financial question if you have. So if your stock options just vested and you don't know what to do with them, let's go through that. You just got married, and now you're having a baby. Let's talk through how that's going to change your financial situation. At any point, we have kind of 3 regular meetings during the year. And at any point, if anything changes, you just pick up the phone and we meet as much as we need to until we get that thing figured out.
That sounds tremendous.
I'm on your team wholeheartedly all the time. Yeah.
That sounds tremendous, Lauryn. And one of the things that stands out to me is athletes that I've known personally, professional athletes from this area, you just placed it right in someone else's hands, your finances, and you bought a home, you invested in property, you did all these different investments, and you lose a ton of money. And you can't recover that money. You didn't even have a full picture of what you just described. And to me, I think that's the biggest issue moving forward with athletes or entertainers, or people who have just a lot of money. If you don't have a full understanding of what can happen, assets, liabilities, balances, you need to understand how everything affects your bottom line. And I don't think we talk enough about that to athletes at a young age. They get thrown a lot of money and they think the money's just going to just continue to make money for them. And what you just explained is just tremendous. And I think that, just moving forward, I'm going to definitely put you on my website and recommend you for as many people as I can recommend, because you've been there. You understand what it takes. You've been handed the 52 fake out by people. And I think it's very important that people understand that you have to trust somebody. And you're the type of person, from the time you got elected class president as a freshman in high school and student council president, people trusted you. So, now we move forward and you have your own business and people are still trusting you with their finances. Lauryn, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. And like I told you off air, I just firmly believe that the Lord puts people in your path that need to be in your path, because some things are just far greater and they're easily achieved with somebody who's like-minded. I appreciate you coming on, taking your time out. I look forward to having you in studio at some point. If you are in the Pittsburgh area, please let me know in advance, because I will move my schedule around and bring you in, because it has just been a pleasure to watch you grow from the young lady who ran for the Wings of Moon, went on to Rochester, went on to University of Miami, 4-time Olympian, now running a successful business. Man, it's just been a pleasure, Lauryn. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really, really a pleasure. I enjoyed talking to you. And of course, I will let you know if I make it to the area and have any time to catch up with you.
Because I may come to Dallas, Texas now. I've been known to travel, Lauryn, so I may come to Dallas, Texas.
All right. Well, if you can catch me there, because I'm here, there, and everywhere. But happy to have you.
All right. Thank you so much. And that was Lauryn Williams, the queen of track and field. And now you're like the queen of finances now.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. The queen of finances for those in their 20s and 30s and professional athletes, right?
Absolutely. Thanks again, Lauryn. Thanks for everything.